All right, how are you guys doing this afternoon, this evening? This evening, yeah, very much so evening. So I'm Tiffany Dillard. I'm the Executive Director of CASA of Harrison and Stone Counties, where Miss Loretta is one of our newest advocates. She became an advocate last month or the beginning of this month. So what does that look like? I'm here to kind of tell you guys a little bit about CASA and what being an advocate looks like. So has anybody heard of CASA? Okay, what do you know about CASA? Okay, okay, good deal. So how was that process like, or your experience with CASA?
It was great. It didn't take long, and the child he was placed with in our home, and it was a he was I think he was about 17, 16 or 17, and he was a child that nobody thought would ever amount to anything, or he was doing so. It was so much violence because of where he came from that the schools wouldn't accept him, but they let him back in, and he he ended up going to the military.
So you said that he had a CASA.
He had a
Okay.
concert.
So
Yes.
what was your experience like with the CASA advocate? Did that person come to the home?
Well, she came to the home. She came to the home and checked it out for a little bit. But like I said, it wasn't a long process,
Right.
and it made it easy
Okay.
for the
Okay. All right. So what's your name?
Pam.
Pam. So what Miss Pam was saying is that she had a child in foster care, and her child was assigned to CASA, and she said that the CASA advocate would come to her home and during that short period of time helped kind of speed some things along. Okay. And so that's basically what CASAs do. We are a nonprofit organization. We are housed in Gulfport behind Pass Road Elementary. CASA has been, operating since 2011 when we accepted our first case. And so CASA stands for Court Appointed Special Advocates. And our advocates are just that. They literally are sworn in the last day, right, Miss Loretta? You're sworn in and you're a sworn officer of the court. And so as a CASA advocate, the advocates will visit the child at least once a month. At least once a month, the CASA advocate will visit the child. And what does that look like when the advocate goes for that visit? It's just building rapport, listening to the child if they can talk, finding out what their needs are. There's a lot of discussions with CPS, and we work hand in hand with the youth court as well. And we all just try to make sure the child's needs are taken care of. And so we know our children need resources, right? Foster care or not. All of our kids need resources. And so with CASA's answered the call because of an overwhelmed system. So CPS is very overwhelmed. I'm quite sure you guys have heard that or know a little bit about that. And so where we come in is we walk alongside CPS. We go and visit the child, we report back to CPS, we report back to the judge, and they are the ones that actually have the authority to do anything about it. And so what CASAs do is we make that recommendation so that the judge and CPS can fulfill the need. Does that make sense? The other thing that CASA does is we try to reverse trauma. So we all know we've all been through trauma. Raise your hand if you've never experienced a traumatic event. Right, so we've all been through trauma. But children in foster care, every time they're removed from their family, that's trauma. They're traumatized. It doesn't matter what has happened in the home. Children want to be at home. Doesn't matter abuse or no, they want to be with their parents, right? And so CASA Well, what the studies show is that the effects of trauma, they're bad, right? So, but having a consistent, caring adult in a child's life helps kind of reverse that trauma. And that's science. That's safety. Kids feel safe when they have their CASA advocate come visit them after they've moved homes 5 times, or after they've gotten a new CPS worker 10 times. I mean, really, it happens a lot. But CASA is that one consistent adult that child should be able to count on. So, Ms. Loretta, can you talk a little bit about the commitment that you took when you became, even when you signed up to become a CASA volunteer?
So my commitment was to the child, of course, who's in foster care, but also to those foster parents. So the commitment is, of course, confidentiality. So I'm not able to share with my husband or other people about the various cases that I may be exposed to or able to actually provide services for. I made a commitment to be consistent in that child's life. Like Ms. Tiffany said, at least once a month to put a face with them. But if you want to go every week, you can. But I had a visit recently, and it was a blessing because the person was just so receptive, you know. And that's the commitment I made, to be there, to be a source of comfort, to be a source of hope. Even if the child's been taken from their father or mother, there's even a commitment there because we want to, if we can, reunify that family.
Right.
And so that is the goal. And so with that, there may be some things that those families have to do, you know, some boxes they have to check. So as an advocate, to be there to provide those resources and be that, what can I say, that missing piece if perhaps CPS can't get it done, or if the ball is dropped in one area, then we're able to be there and to be the eyes and the ears for that judge.
Right. So can you talk a little bit about
Yes.
how long you will commit to being a CASA? So let's say you're signed up for a case. How
Yes.
long will you be on that case?
There will not be an end
Right.
to the time that I'm on that case.
Right.
Even once that child is reunified, I'm still a part of that child's life.
Right. And so, thank you, Ms. Loretta.
Yes.
So, CASA, what we ask for is that anytime you sign up, anytime you make the commitment to move forward with becoming a CASA volunteer, we ask that you know in your heart and your soul that you're able to commit to the life of that case. That could be, I think she had her baby a short amount of time, or it could be we've had some in custody over 2 years even. So we're asking that you, when you come into this child's life, don't become another source that's going to leave the child's life. And we all understand how having that constant adult, being safe, feeling like you got somebody on your team that is finally listening to you, we don't want that removed, right? We don't want that person removed from that child's life. So like Ms. Loretta said, we make sure CPS and youth court can do what they need to do. But in the meantime, we're listening to the child. We're all about the child. We are, even when we go and help the parents and the biological parents that want to get reunified with their children, it's all about the child. We're helping the parent so that they can have a stable home and not re-enter the system, so to speak. And so CASA advocates, oh my gosh, I'm just thinking of some examples. Stephanie, can you give some examples about what you've done for a biological family to help with reunification?
Okay, actually I was a CASA advocate for 3 years prior to coming into this role. I had a family of 2 young ladies. Their mama was on drug and also had a mental issue. They were placed in foster care, and we came into a difficult situation where they did not want to give one of the family members the legal custody of the child. And we went about doing everything we can, but one thing we did do, we took it to who we know who could fix it. Me and her got on our knees and we prayed and we asked God, we're going to let you deal with this situation. We didn't agree with the decision, but she trusted me enough that we prayed to God, and before we know it, we went back to court and they gave her the kids. And she's actually has her nieces and nieces with her. She has adopted one. The other one is actually, she was, if she stayed here, she wouldn't have graduated high school till she was 20, but she graduated last year from Madison High School. She graduated on time. She actually got accepted into Hines Community College, where she's going to go to school for cooking. She's doing great, and that's the piece that we're missing. We have forgot about families, and the families is very important. Yes, CASA is the voice of the children, but as an advocate, what does a child want? I want to be with my mom and my dad. So guess what? If I'm that child's voice, that means I got to do whatever it takes to reunite that child back to that parent.
Mm-hmm. Amen. But like Ms. Stephanie was saying, that so with Ms. Stephanie's case, and I can give limited information and not breach confidentiality. So with Ms. Stephanie's case, the reunification, was it ever an option, even in the beginning? So reunification wasn't an option, and that happens sometimes when the abuse is so great, or when the abuse is so severe, you know, the judge might say, okay, that parent's not getting that baby back, that was just too much. And if it's a repetitive cycle, then the judge might say, okay, no, we need to try to find other alternatives outside of reuniting the child with the biological families. And so, but I will say that in Harrison and Stone counties, what we've seen is that judges try to keep the families together. So if you can't go, the child can't go back with their biological family, well, their biological parents, then the next step is kinship placement, okay? And so that is what we see most of. Most of our kids are placed in kinship placement, which is great. We want them to be with their families of origin because that's where the culture is. That's who you know, most connected to your biological parents in that way. And so that's our second step. You know, if you can't be with bio parents, then we want the child to be with family. And then if that can't happen, then sometimes adoption is the way to go. And so, but I will say that we have seen judges do everything, give parents chance after chance after chance to get it right. And it's hard. I was talking to an advocate supervisor yesterday. Let me back up a second and tell y'all what an advocate supervisor is. So each of our CASA advocates are assigned to a supervisor, an advocate supervisor, and we are mandated to do that by National CASA. And so that supervisor will support the advocate. If something's going on with the case, you know, call and say, hey, this just happened, what should I do? Or hey, mom needs to go to parenting classes, can you tell me where I can find parenting classes? And so that's what we have staff for. So anytime people make donations, and you know, just provide other things for our organization, it goes into supporting our advocates. We don't have a lot of administrative overhead. It goes right into our program. So let me get back to where I was going with this. So we always want to make sure that we're doing whatever we can to get our parents reunited with their kids, because we know that in the long run, this is just data. This is numbers, not an argument, it's facts. Kids do better when they're back with their families. So we want that when at all possible. But when that's not possible, we're looking at the next thing. With Stephanie's situation, Stephanie's case, the aunt actually had to fight a little bit. They were not, this happens, right? We love CPS, we love our youth court, but sometimes things happen. And so with this particular case, the aunt had to fight a little bit to be able to be recognized as a safe place for these children to be placed with. And so when she got that, Ms. Stephanie was there every step of the way to make sure the aunt had all of the resources, you know. She helped her remain hopeful to know that when it happens, when you do get these babies back, you need to be prepared. So let's start working on X, Y, Z, okay? And so there's not a part of a case that we don't touch, because if that person or entity is involved with a child, then we're involved with that person. So as a sworn officer of the court, I didn't tear it up. As a sworn officer of the court, we have access to everything CPS has access to. We have all medical records, say it again, forensic interviews, what's the other thing? IEP, the school data. We can call the school up and say, hey, I'm the CASA advocate. I need to have access to the child's grades, because that's important. So when we write a court report, judge wants to know, how's the child performing in school? So the advocate will need to contact the school to see how the child's performing in school. So the advocates will also go to IEP meetings, because our babies, all of them, I'm going to say all of them will have some type of need, some type of special need, not special needs child, but some type of special need that the school will need to make accommodations for, and we're there fighting for that as well. So I will say that most of the time we do things harmoniously, but sometimes there are disagreements with the way things should go, okay? And so we will get with CPS and we'll say, hey, this is what we've seen. What have you seen? What are your recommendations? Do you think mom is ready to get the baby back? CPS might say yes, we might say no. We still tell the judge why we say no, and we write a court report with the advocate supervisor's assistance that says, hey judge, this is what I've seen. Went to the house on these days, this is what I saw. I don't think mom is ready. Instead, let's get mom into parenting classes, let's get dad out of the home, or vice versa, and let's get the baby into therapy, and those different things. And the judge will say, okay, let's get the child back with the parents. In the meantime, let's do these things that the CASA advocate has recommended. You know, so it just really depends on what's going on, but our role is to provide the court with this information. The judge makes the decisions. We sometimes don't agree with those decisions, you know, but that's not our role. Our job is to gather that information, take care of our babies, and do what we can at the end of the day. We're not the judges. So we just provide that additional support to CPS and the judge. What am I missing? Does anybody have any questions? I'm sure I'm missing a ton, because I could talk all day about CASA. It's a lot. We provide a lot of services to our children.
What are the requirements to be a CASA?
Good, good. Okay, so to be a CASA volunteer, you have to be 21 years of age or older, and you have to, of course, have a heart full of love and compassion and the ability to visit the child at least once a month. As far as training goes, our advocates go through 30+ hours of training, and that includes, we have half of that online now, and then the other half is in person. Was it that bad, Miss Loretta? Wasn't bad at all. So we fed you good. They ate. They ate every night. If there's one thing we could do, we could feed, right? So we're just so appreciative of our advocates that we do as much as we can. But outside of the training, our advocates, once they're sworn in, have to get 12 contact hours, 12 training hours per year. And so the training goes on and on and on. Yes, sir. Did that answer your question? Okay.
What kind of background investigations do you do, ma'am?
Background investigations. Tell me a little bit more about that.
For the advocates, so that we can be CASAs.
Okay, good deal. So what he's referring to is the screening process. So we don't take you through the ringer, but you're working with the most precious beings on this earth, so you do have to go through an extensive screening process, as you can probably understand. So that begins with what we call a CASA 101 info session, which today would be considered that for you guys. And if you are looking to move forward, you do an interview. That's all of this is screening. So at any point we don't get good vibes, or you don't get good vibes, you don't feel like it's a right fit, or vice versa, then that will kind of end things there. If you want to go a step further and we agree, then you'll enter the training. And so by the time we have our in-person sessions, we need 50% of that training completed. Before enrolling you into training, we do what we call a child abuse and neglect registry, which is a background check to make sure you don't have any substantiated child abuse claims. Once you've completed 2 in-person sessions, we then do the big background check. We check for everything. I don't even know the list, but it's everything. And so, no, you don't have to have good credit. You know, you don't, no. We don't care about your credit, we care about your heart, okay? And your criminal history. So even if we go through all of that and something does ping, it's not the end of the world, so to speak. It's almost the end of the world, but I always take those cases to judge. We have a conversation. If it's something that's violent, we're probably gonna say it's the end of the road for you, and provide you with other opportunities to help our organization. But there are options if it's depending on what the charge is, you know. So there is an extensive screening and background check process that does happen, because you're an officer of the court. Literally, you raise your hand, you get sworn in, you take an oath. You know, it's that serious. And you're dealing with the most serious of cases. I mean, y'all know how, foster parents can't take pictures of kids. It's highly confidential. So we have to make sure we get the right kind of people in to work with our kids, and to be discreet and have good judgment and those types of things. I think, like Ms. Loretta said, that she can't talk to her husband about her case. That is true. So confidentiality is big with our organization. So let's just say Ms. Loretta and her husband were going to dinner, and Ms. Loretta just wanted to stop by at her baby's house. She can't do that, because her husband would be in the car with her, and then that means her husband would know where that child lives. And that's confidential information, unless you're a sworn officer of the court, right? So we take confidentiality very serious, and in specific cases, we have had to dismiss advocates because that has been breached, but we do try. I'm a person, I try too hard with people. I just have that hope, and if I give up hope, I'm sorry. Steph's like, yeah, she's too nice. But yeah, so I mean, we have that hope lens. We have a lot of parents that are, you have to have it, because we have a lot of parents that are dealing with substance misuse or abuse issues. And if you've experienced that, or if you know somebody that's experienced it, you know it's a lifelong journey. I mean, you could be up one day and down the next. And so we start over with hope. You fall off the wagon, whatnot, okay. Your urine is dirty, so to speak. Okay, let's get back on track. So, because if you've seen this before, if you've worked in social services and worked with children and families, you've probably seen that it's easy to give up hope for a parent. Most of the parents that are involved in the system, their parents were involved in the system. And so it's real easy to say, oh, they took my mama's kids, they're gonna take mine too, I might as well give up. And so that CASA advocate will be there to say, you can do this. We get to be the good guys. We get to be the cheerleaders to say, let's my Bible study alarm. We get to be the cheerleaders that say, you can do this. Let's go. Let's get back up. What do you need? So, any other questions? Yes, ma'am.
Thank you for taking the question. So, in piggyback on the background check, if you're currently military, does that help move the process along quicker, or does it matter?
It does not, even though, thank you for your service.
Oh, absolutely.
I appreciate you.
And
But it does not move the process along any quicker.
And that's totally understandable.
Yeah.
Another question, what means do you communicate with the children? Is it only face-to-face?
No, that's a really good question. So, y'all know since COVID, we've seen that you can, since COVID, we see that you can do a lot of things virtually. And so sometimes we have kids that are placed in institutions, unfortunately, and, I don't know if they could have a camera in the institution, it just depends. But let's just say a child is placed in Jackson or further. You probably aren't going to be able to see that child once a month, but you can do FaceTime or you can do Zoom and do a virtual visit that way. So that's not the only option. Yes, ma'am.
I know it's a lot going on, and sometimes you can get overwhelmed with the situations that you're handling from day to day with the kids.
Yeah.
So my question is, what support is there for the advocate of CASA so they're not breaching confidentiality?
Right, that's a great question. So all of our staff, all the way down to Miss Katie Mays, we call her, she does our cleaning. All of our staff are there to support our advocates. If an advocate can't reach their advocate supervisor, they have my number. They'll text, say, hey, I just had this happen, can you help me? Or can you help me get in contact with my advocate supervisor? We also think that continuously providing that professional development, that training, helps build your skills, helps the advocates build those skills. And so we also deal a lot with trauma. Right now we're doing working on implementing trust-based relational intervention into our practices internally and for our kids, the whole nine. And so that's just all about meeting the needs that trauma causes. So there's a lot of vicarious trauma, secondary trauma that can happen as a result, and so we try to be there for our advocates in that case. And so we also have a rapport with advocates. If they come in looking like, this is too much, what just happened was too much, then we know how to help find some resources for the advocate. Thank you guys so very much. I will leave. Thank you. I will leave Ms. Loretta some business cards, and I think you guys have some handouts, and that has our contact information on there. Please give us a call. We would love to see you guys there. All right.
Thank you.
All right, appreciate the information. So for those of you who, since we stream this meeting on Facebook and YouTube. If you're in the Harrison County area, you can reach out to CASA, C-A-S-A, harrisonstone.org, or you can call them at 228-865-7078. So we're going to close out this meeting, and for those of you who are tuning in for our Bible study, we'll be coming back on live in just a few minutes. God bless you.